BADASSATRON.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers Studio Series Deluxe Class Bumblebee. Based on the Transformers 1 animated movie, this take on the character saw him relegated to waste management, where he was introduced as B127.
I'm actually working on some nicknames. The one I'm floating right now is BADASSATRON.
And as we whack up an image of how he did appear in the movie, much like all of the Transformers 1 figures released so far, an incredibly faithful recreation of his design. Despite the mainline version mostly being an incredibly solid release, this Bumblebee still manages to somehow be even better. Take the head sculpt for example. Whilst there wasn't anything bad about the previous version, this is just way closer to his look in the film. The chest plate also looks much better in person. Initially, I was kinda looking at the CG renders, thinking that much like the War for Cybertron Bumblebee, that it would be almost a little too bulky, but that really doesn't seem to be the case at all. The only thing which I would have liked to have seen carried over from the mainline version would have definitely been the transformation cog. This was honestly such a cool gimmick and a huge moment in the film that I really do think they could have and should have found a way to re-engineer it into this guy, but his legs are a massive improvement. Due to how the transformation worked on the mainline version, it made the insides incredibly hollow, which unfortunately really was my biggest issue, whereas this version is stacked and also really well made, and I really do think the same could also be said for both Optimus Prime and Megatron. Despite them lacking in the paint department, they have to be by far some of the most substantial deluxe figures to be released in years. And it's just kind of a shame that the movie didn't perform better at the box office, as I really liked this modern Cybertronian twist that they did give to some of the classic G1 designs. But back to Bumblebee, even from this angle, he is again incredibly accurate. There's nothing on this design that shouldn't be there, and I'm kinda hoping that in the future, seeing as this look is fairly similar to how he appeared in the opening of the Bumblebee movie, that they do take this mold and find some way to re-engineer it into B127, as that original figure has to be by far one of the biggest victims of a backpack to be released into the line. Buzzing into B's accessories, he includes not one but two blasters, a pair of blades, and then finally a tracker blaster. So definitely a decent amount for a deluxe class. The blasters integrate really well into the design to give you the impression that much like in the movie, they have transformed out of his forearms, and can be further weaponized up by making use out of Bumblebee's knife hands.
Knife hands?
These can also be stored on his back, and what's kind of cool about the blades is that from certain angles, they almost give off the impression of blast effects, so I guess this could also double as a jetpack. His blaster, whilst is super faithful to what is seen on screen, I do kind of view as a DLC to Optimus Prime, as I do believe he used it more so than Bumblebee, and you can now faithfully recreate one of the best action poses that Prime pulls off in the entire movie. Although, I do think this could have been swapped out in favour of the battle mask, especially as that was something included with both the Blockies and Yellow Park figures to truly recreate
BADASSATRON.
Turning to posability to see what sting this bee is packing. To begin with, the head is on a ball joint. This can look up and down and of course can be spun left to right. The shoulders can kick forwards, backwards and they're out to the side. The elbows can bend and the bicep can spin. Although unfortunately due to the way this guy transforms, there is no wrist articulation. But despite not being used for the transformation, the waist can be spun all the way around and the hips can kick both forwards and backwards, allowing B to pull off the complete splits. He is also packing a pretty deadly high kick, the thigh can spin, the knee can bend there to 90, and in addition to the ankles rocking downwards, these can also rock inwards. But to really see the true power of
BADASSATRON,
let's now put him through the post test. Firing through a few robot mode size comparisons, on the right hand side is the Yellow Park version of Bumblebee. Now considering that this guy here can transform, I actually do think they did a pretty decent job in translating this into this. Next up is the Studio Series Voyager class Sentinel Prime, which I've got to say really is my favourite out of all of the Transformers 1 figures released so far. This guy's an absolute blast to mess with. The Deluxe class Optimus Prime and Megatron, so the core 4 is nearly complete and the release of the Studio Series Elite 1 really couldn't come soon enough. The Transformers 1 mainline deluxe class Bumblebee, which was actually a pretty decent figure, especially for being a first pass through the design, but as is usually the case, I do find myself preferring the look of this version. Then finally, let's now wrap things up with the War for Cybertron Bumblebee and the 86 movie Bumblebee.
Transform and roll out!
So for the first step, take the head sculpt and spin this all the way around until the back now faces the front. We can then take this panel, hinge it backwards in order to reveal a second panel. The chest plate will then pop upwards, allowing for this section to slide inwards, and once completed, this can now snap into the front half. The forearm will then hinge upwards, allowing for the fist to be slid all the way inside. This can then snap back into place, and what you can then do is rotate inwards at the bicep. And again guys, be sure to do the same for the second side. So slide the fist here upwards, snap this panel back into place, and then proceed to rotate this here inwards. The foot will then hinge downwards, allowing for the heel spur to be slid inside. Once completed, the back part of the leg can be separated in order for that tab to slide into this tiny tab on Bumblebee's shin. And again, be sure to do the same for the second side. So slide the heel spur inwards, take the back part of the leg, spin this all the way around to the front until this does snap into place. Both hips will then kick forwards and will combine directly down the middle. You'll then take the lower half, hinge this upwards until it does snap into the top half. You'll then take this shoulder joint and click this downwards so that this joint can then be hinged upwards, and that tab will slide into Bumblebee's bicep. Once completed, this will now attach into the side of the vehicle. And again guys, be sure to do the same for the second side. Once this is fully snapped into place, that right there is the transformation fully complete. Here is Bumblebee now fully transformed into his Cybertronian vehicle mode. And again, as we directly compare him against the CG design, there's really not too much to say other than they nailed it. Visually, Bumblebee looks exactly how he appeared in the film, although surprisingly not as solid as the mainline version. There are definitely quite a few gaps in the side of the vehicle, which are mainly a result of how this one does transform in comparison. But in all honesty, it's not that bad, and I would have much preferred this over the hollow legs of the original. And again, to kind of go back to my previous point, even in this form, he still looks incredibly similar to his live action movie counterpart, which does give me hope that maybe one day this will become the superior version between the two. You can also fully weaponize B up to the max by making use out of his vehicle mode storage, and paired alongside the 4 pinned on wheels, the Decepticons quite simply don't stand a chance. Racing through a few vehicle mode size comparisons, first up is the Studio Series Deluxe Class Optimus Prime, Megatron, Transformers 1 Mainline Bumblebee, the War for Cybertron version, then finally 86 Movie Bumblebee. So, wrapping up on this review for the Transformers Studio Series Deluxe Class Bumblebee. Once again, another incredibly solid entry into the Transformers 1 line of characters. Bumblebee in both robot and vehicle mode is a super faithful recreation of how he did appear on screen, and to my surprise is even better than the mainline version. Whilst I would have definitely liked to have seen the inclusion of the battle mask, the accessories that he does come with are awesome and can even be used with Optimus Prime. But one thing to definitely take into consideration is that this guy is a part of Hasbro's A-level line, meaning that he won't be flying off shelves anytime soon. And if the 86 Movie Bumblebee is anything to go by, in a few months' time this will more than likely be discounted. So if you can wait, then I would definitely recommend to do so. I would love to get your guys' thoughts on Bumblebee down below. As always, I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, I'll see you then. Transform and roll out!